Welcome to the Scotty P podcast. And man, I'm here today with Chris Wojcik. Man, I've had you on the podcast before with Keith Krikorian, and it was after, what were we down there for? I don't even remember. Maybe it was for Sogi. That's right. Yeah, we competed on Sogi, and then we went and trained at Rouse, and I had you guys on the podcast at an Italian restaurant. That was pretty funny. It was background noise. But I appreciate you coming on again, man. It was kind of hard to get to kind of like interview you both because I wanted to talk to both of you at the same time. So I felt like I didn't get to ask you as many questions. But I would like to give you a chance to kind of give the audience a little background because I know you've kind of had a lot going on since the last time we linked up.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Because it was March of last year. It was almost a year ago.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me back.
Absolutely.
So since we last left off, I think it was March of last year. So I competed at Grapple Fest. I lost. I competed somewhere else. I think I won that one, whatever. Then right after that, I went down to Austin for a month just to like train and cross train and, get a different feel. And I was teaching at the time and I quit my job teaching and I kind of was like just going to train for a while. And around that time, I was like, okay, I think I need to move here. Like the trip was really good. The training was really good. The guys were cool. Everything it felt like a good fit. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to move to Austin. And then around that time, I started doing the Grappler's Diary on Instagram. And then a few months later, that started to blow up. And then since then, I placed in the Euro trials and then did North American trials. I lost in I think it was the 16 or this round of 16 I lost. And then did CJJ. I'm full-time in Austin now as of July. And just been busy going back to Croatia or going back to Europe to Croatia next week, leaving Tuesday for the second Euro trials.
Hell yeah. Yeah, so so where were you teaching at before?
So I was teaching at a gym in Chicago called Northside Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's on the north side of Chicago. And it was a good gym. It was like a good job, good people. It was not like there was no like bad reason that I left. I was just
looking for better training.
Looking for better, competition training. Really, I was training at a different gym in Chicago under a guy named Jeff Seraphin. That's who I got my black belt under.
Right.
And I was training with him. I was training with the guys there, and it was good. But like I wasn't getting pushed. Not like I'm getting pushed to B team, like where it's like I'm getting beat up by like the best guys in the world every day. And so that was something that I was like, I'm 26. I need to move now if I'm going to do it, and so I just was like, screw it, let's go for it. And so I just made the move. I've been, doing a lot of writing, seminars like we did today, training, and that's been it.
Hell yeah, dude. So you're essentially like broken into that, like you're a full competitor lifestyle now. You're pretty much a full-time athlete.
Yes. So I train every day. I do the noon session at B team every single day. And then I do like my writing stuff. I have a couple DVDs. I do like my just seminars and private lessons when they come up and stuff like that. And that's what I'm doing right now, full time. So it's been like, I'll be totally honest with you. It was a really tough first few months transition. And it started to like kind of turn a corner I would say the last 2 or 3 months, it's really started to turn around. But the first, like it's been about a year, 10 months, I would say, that I've been doing this full time. The first 4 or 5 months were tough, and then the last 2, 3, we've kind of turned a corner. So it's been really good and challenging, but really rewarding.
Right. Hell yeah, dude. And so you got trials coming up. You're doing the second European trials. Man, I'm excited to watch that. So you're doing, I know you mentioned that you're trying to go up a division than the last one you did. So you're doing 88 kilograms.
Yeah. So what happened last time, this is like kind of a crazy story, but I was signed up at 77 for the last one. And I competed in a tournament about 5 weeks before, and I got put in a steam lock and it just destroyed my ankle.
Dang.
Like I was like, fucked up. And I couldn't train for like I didn't really have a camp, like I couldn't wrestle. I did a lot of hand fighting. I did a lot of turtle situational, like I can do my guard because I'm mostly playing on my back, so it doesn't really bother it. But I couldn't really train how I wanted to. And the big problem was I couldn't I wasn't burning as many calories, and I was like 15 pounds over. I was like 184 for 169. And that was like 2 weeks before. And I was like, okay, this is like going to be a problem. And at the time they hadn't switched it to day before weigh-ins. So I switched my registration, and I was like, I'll just do 88. I'm not even really healthy. I'm just going to do 88 and see how it goes. And I ended up taking third. And I was like, okay, I weighed in at 83 kilos after dinner, you know, like I was super undersized for the division. And I performed really well, and I matched up really well stylistically with a lot of the guys in the division. And I was like, okay, what if next time around I try and be a little bigger and then do the same weight class? So that's kind of what I've been focusing on. Like, I've never bulked in my career. I've always been I've always cut to make weight. I've never tried to go up in weight, except for like once when I was doing IBJJF, I did middle instead of light, like, you know, but it's a small jump. Whereas for ADCC, doing a jump it's a big jump. It's like 25 pounds.
25 pounds, yeah.
And so I was like, I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to try to go up. I've been lifting, working with a strength coach. I've been like eating a lot more, being more like conscious with like, you know, trying to add size as opposed to like just lifting and training kind of for performance. I've also been trying to do it to add size, and I'm going to give it a go for this European trials. And if it doesn't go well, you know, screw it, I'll go back to 77. I can still get down there in a few months, you know, but for this one, I'm going up.
Interesting. So yeah, we have the Croatia trials, but then not far after that, we'll have the second American trials. We'll have the West Coast trials and at the end of March. And I'm going to go to that. I'll be there in Vegas. So I'll see you there. What is your plan for that? So are you just going to test the waters for this European, or are you committed for the next two at 88? Or are you going to just see how European goes?
Yeah, so I thought about it a lot, and I was like, so that was what I did last time, was I did 88 and I cut to 77, and I was miserable. And so this time I'm like, but I also wasn't trying to go up to 88 before. I just did my natural weight and competed. And, you know, I was like, then I was about 15-pound water cut for 77, which is not easy. It's like, it's not like I rehydrate well. I do the whole like water cutting and it goes well. But I was like, you know, if I'm going to add size, then it's going to be like a 20-pound water cut. So I'm like, and also it's only about 5 weeks between the two trials. And so I decided I'm going to do 88 for the next two. And then, so the goal is to win, right? So the goal is to win in Europe. But if I don't, then I'll be back at West Coast at 88. And then, you know, if that doesn't work, then next year I'll go back down to 77 and,
gotcha,
you know, structure my training that way.
Yeah, man, it's so funny how, like, you know, when you get good at jiu-jitsu, or, you know, when you're in it, you kind of want to think that weight classes don't matter. That's the way I want to train anyways. I want to train as if weight classes don't matter, because I want to be good against everybody, different styles against different people. But when it comes to the trials, man, weight matters so much. It's almost mind-boggling that how much the styles change, the speed changes, the games change. And so, yeah, deciding what weight class you're going to do is a huge part of like your overall strategy. Yeah.
So it's funny, like when I look at the divisions, I think I match up at 88 way better than at 77, you know, for some of the guys like Taza, Mateus, those are like really dangerous guys who are like fast, especially, you know, whereas I'm like fast for 88. I'm not super fast for 77, but for 88, I'm very fast.
Right.
You know? And I'm also like not, and I've been able to keep my speed pretty well, I think, as I've added a little bit of size. I think that it's like, you know, what you don't want to do is you don't want to like go up in weight and then your whole game changes. And then you're not the same athlete that you used to be when you change weight classes. So I think that it's like, I've been trying to be kind of like really focusing on skill development the last few months, and like the size kind of is on the side, you know, so I'm trying to add size. It's something I'm working on, but like really just like, if I have good jiu-jitsu, I should do well either weight class, as long as I'm physically like, it's appropriate that I belong in that division.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So, dude, the WNO was last night, and there were some crazy upsets. I think like I mean, well, I guess you could argue that anyone, there's sides for both on which athletes people think are going to win, but I felt like just looking at the roster of who won, man, it's pretty interesting. It looks like the gi guys kind of took the lead last night. So you had Victor Hugo get a win over Nicky Rod, and then you had Diego Pato get a win over Dante Leon, and then you had Tannen Dalbra get the win over Oliver Taza. And so the kind of like new thing that people were talking about, I think Lucas Lepre put something out, was saying that the best guys are training both and that we should all be training both. And so now there's like this huge argument where like, is it smart to do all no-gi? Do the best guys really do both? I know you've done both for, you won, or you medaled at the first trials and you were doing both, right? So, but now you've switched to B team where it's all no-gi. So I don't know, where's your mind at as far as like gi, no-gi, doing both? Should you specialize? What do you think?
I think that whatever, like, it depends on like who you're talking to, right? Like for the average person, I would say do whatever you want, like whatever, like follow your curiosity, because that's how you're going to get the most out of jiu-jitsu. I think that for a competitor, it's like you need to look at competitive goals. Like, is your goal ADCC? Because if I watch like the matches last night, if I look at like ADCC scoring, granted it's different. But like the guys who are like training only no-gi are out wrestling the gi guys, like Nick Rod. I think Victor Hugo didn't even want to engage on the feet. Kenta out wrestled Mika. Granted, Tynan did out wrestle Taza, but like for the most part, it's like if you look at ADCC, if that's your goal, you should be training no gi. If your goal is gi stuff, like you still want to do gi worlds, gi pans, whatever, then you got to train in the gi. And then I would say probably with no gi exploding in popularity, you want to train both. I think everybody should do no gi. But I think that if like the gi, it's like you should only be really doing it if it's something that you're interested in, because as the sport like gets more and more popular, I think no gi is becoming kind of like the more popular of the two, especially with, WNO only does no gi. They've done one gi match ever, right? Marigali.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
And so like, if that's kind of the direction that the sport's going, like One is no-gi, Polaris is no-gi, all of the big events are no-gi, whereas like there are professional events in the gi, but it's not the same thing.
Yeah, 90 plus.
I don't think that you need to train gi to get good at no-gi.
You don't think you need to train gi to get good at no-gi?
No.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't think that's a thing. I think that like, I don't like doing jujitsu is always like better than not doing jujitsu, whether it's gi or no gi, it's always better. But like, it doesn't, I don't think it like necessarily is like, people used to always say that it makes you more technical. I think like it kind of depends, like it's not training in the gi. It doesn't make you better at no-gi. It makes you better at jiu-jitsu, which then makes you better at no-gi.
Yeah.
I don't think the reason Tynan beat Taza is because he trains in the gi. I think it's because Tynan had better jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And I think that
he's also a bigger athlete, which is
he's a bigger athlete too. I think that when we look at the other match, I think you look at like Dante and Pato. I think that I feel like I think Pato had better jiu-jitsu that night. Also, too, Pato just got to his spot, Pato's like, I think he's the best leg locker in the world right now.
Yeah,
he got exactly where he wanted to be. And I've trained with Dante a lot. Dante has really good leg lock defense, Dante also has really good passing. But Pato, I think it's like styles make fights. I don't think it's really what you train.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, when I started a long time ago, about 12 years ago. And I first got into it to do MMA. And so the only way to get your grappling in was to put a gi on, because none of the schools did no gi. So I'm certain that when I first started, the only class you could find was like a Wednesday. It was like the middle of the week, one day, no gi at most academies. And then, so it was like, if you wanted to become an MMA fighter, you had to put the gi on so that you could. I had one school that let me do no gi in the gi class, but everyone hated me for it. So eventually I just threw the gi on and started doing it that, and I got my purple belt in the gi. I trained at a Sarah affiliation in Myrtle Beach, so my coach at the Sarah Academy was Matt Sarah's like #1 training partner when he was like one of the best in the world.
Gotcha.
So we had really good jiu-jitsu, but we did half and half, which was still pretty unheard of about 5 years ago that an academy would do that many no-gi days. We did 4 no-gi days, 3 gi days, so I still had a...
So the way that my coach, Jeff, does at the gym in Chicago that I came up at, and I really like this, and very few gyms have done this, but I think they do a week. So it's like this week is gi week, and next week is no-gi week. And that way it's like, you know, if you like no-gi, you're not going to take a week off of jiu-jitsu. You know, you're going to come to gi class.
Yeah.
So it forces people to do both. It makes you kind of improve at both. I think that's kind of the best way to build skills in both. Like for me, I always get, that's how I came up. We've been doing that since like probably 2016, 2017, we started doing that. And I would always like, you know, I always would do better in no-gi because I wrestled when I was a kid. So like no-gi clicked easier. But like I got good in the gi because I trained in the gi all the time. You know, just every week I would train 6 sessions a week in a gi. And then the next week I'd do 6 no-gi. And so I was always doing both. And I really like that approach. I think that if I have a school one day, I'd like to have something like that, you know, or it would just be a no-gi school. I don't know. Now it's been all no-gi, so.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, because I've done a lot of gi in my school now. So when I moved to Houston from Myrtle Beach, I joined an all no-gi school called the Dark Side with Victor Postis, and he was like pretty much the pioneer of leg locks in Texas. So, but before he came, no one was doing leg locks. And 10 years ago, he shows up, and now we're like I would argue, is one of the dominant no-gi schools in Houston right now. And so all no-gi, a lot of leg locks, a lot of submissions, and so I meet a lot of guys who have only experienced no-gi, so I'm kind of like their intermediary between gi and no-gi. And from what I notice, rolling with gi guys and no-gi guys, I find that the gi guys are really good at escaping. And I think that's because there's so much friction in the gi. It's way harder to escape an armbar in the gi than it is an armbar no-gi. And I just find that when I'm getting those, putting the gi guys into those positions like back takes and arm bars, that they are really scrappy. Like they're fighting for every tiny little inch. Whereas no-gi guys, I tend to see that they'll do like, you know, very basic escapes. Whereas like a gi guy's like fighting me tooth and nail to kind of like turn the corner a little bit. So I mean, I kind of see how the argument that people will make that if you want to be, that gi can make your no-gi a little better, but it does seem to get that like almost dogma type thing where they do it. So now it's like, they think it's like the best way. But yeah, no, the style is definitely, it makes a lot of sense. And then you got, I had Cole Abate. He was one of my first guys on the podcast, and he trains both daily, you know, so he was of the mindset that both is best. But yeah, I guess it's kind of back to that same idea of like, grappling in general is the best move. So if you got to do both to get both, and just doing it trumps everything else, right?
Yeah, I think that going to train wherever you're training, whatever you're training, is better than not going to training. I think that, you know, most of the, you know, but then of course it's like most of the debates that we have are all people, like you and I are both going to training, you know, that's like, I'm not going to be like, yeah, Scotty, you got to go to training. Like you're already there, you know? Right. Then it's like, we're kind of talking at like a higher level of like, which one is kind of better. Then I think it comes down to goal setting.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. But there's also that idea too of like, you know, they say that the best athletes are the multi-sport athletes, not the ones who funnel down to one sport, because that actually like increases your injuries, right? Like if you just focus on purely baseball, you're way more likely to get like a career-ending arm injury because you too much wear and tear on your shoulders. So they encourage, it's funny, they encourage them now to play different sports so that wear and tear isn't there anymore. But I remember coming up, they wanted you to do, if you were trying to be the best at something, it's like try to do it year round. But now it shows that science actually disproves that, and that the learning ability to change your athletic ability to match different games overall helps you learn one specific game.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting. That kind of makes sense to me, that if you're constantly learning the different ways to apply your skill set and different rules, because even today, a bunch of people are asking you about different rules, different modifications. And I feel like that overall skill of, preparing and knowing how to adjust your game I could see a benefit in always having to change your style and match the game that you're playing.
Yeah, well, like at that point now you're talking about like game theory, basically,
Right.
Which is like that. But also too, then it's like you should be playing chess, in addition to training, or like maybe that's why like so many jiu-jitsu guys like video games, because it's like some sort of like you're learning, even though you're not moving your body, you're learning how to like win. You're learning strategy, you're learning, how to like overcome obstacles and things like that you will experience in jiu-jitsu. Like even if your goal is like to be the best no-gi jiu-jitsu person, like there are other games that you need to play so that you can play no-gi jiu-jitsu at the highest level. And maybe that's what we saw last night. It's like guys who are, they play gi at the highest level. They, maybe they play chess. I don't know. But like they're doing something, right? They're like learning different ways to win. And so they're able to pull out, last night and pull out wins.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because Victor Hugo, like you're saying, made sure to kind of try to funnel Nicky Rod into his game and not play Nicky Rod's game of like the wrestling and turn it into scrimmaging. Yeah,
which is really smart. Now especially too, like WNO rules are very open. Like I think, and this guy Will, who I know, he said last night, he said WNO rules is like the closest to the jiu-jitsu you'll see in the gym, right? Because you can just sit guard, it's only thing that matters is submission, positional stuff kind of matters, but it's like, it's very loose, but it feels like it makes sense. Like, I train with Nick Rod, but I think that, you look at the matches, like Hugo won the match because he was more offensive. He did more stuff. He had more dominant attacks.
So they do the red and blue corner, like, advantage thing, right? I think is what they do.
Yeah.
So like based on who they thought is like the most aggressive attacker towards submissions.
Yeah. And I think Nick Rod probably won the last 5 minutes, but I think Hugo won the first 10. So you give him 2 out of 3 or something like that. But like that rule set is very open, so it's more about like implementing your tactics as opposed to like ADCC, where ADCC they say, okay, now it's overtime, you can't pull guard.
Right.
Or like folk style wrestling is like, the rules are like, you can't turn this way, you're going to get pinned. You can't like, reversals, the periods are 2 minutes, or then you change and you do IBJJF. So it's like you have all these different rule sets, whereas the WNO rules are very open, so it's more about forcing the fight to like I said, like styles make fights, right? So it's like forcing the match to be like in your style, which is what Hugo managed to do.
Your perspective. So you did wrestling. So do you see that a lot in wrestling where there's like, I've never wrestled. So this is, I know of wrestling. I watch it a lot. So I'm just a spectator that grapples a lot. But is there, like in high school wrestling, like do different tournaments have different rules and you guys are always preparing, or is you guys all have the same rules? I know there's different styles like folk style. And then if you go to college, there's freestyle or something like that.
So the way it works is like, so folk style wrestling is what you'll see in high schools and colleges and middle schools in America. Folk style wrestling, I think, is the best kind of wrestling for jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. I've definitely heard that.
But they don't do it anywhere else in the world except for America's schools. It's called like scholastic folk style wrestling.
Yeah, so like, is that in college too or no?
Yeah, so that's what they do in college. And there are some slight modifications. Like once you get to college, like you go from a 3-minute period to a 2-minute period. I think there's some rules about like dragging your feet on takedowns, which are different. And then you finish college, and then folk style wrestling doesn't matter anymore. There's no more folk style wrestling.
Yeah.
But then you
like
can do freestyle, you can do Greco,
freestyle.
And then like in high school they have freestyle and Greco as well. So like you can be training for folk style and freestyle. And I remember like when I was in high school, there would always be some kids who would be like state, like 4-time Greco state champs, but never would win state.
Damn.
They win Greco state, but they didn't win folk style state. And folk style state is like the one that like,
the hardest
that's the one they made like a movies about. It's the one that's like has the most prestige in America. But like, if you want to be an Olympic champion, you know, maybe specializing in freestyle or in freestyle wrestling is what you want to do. Now, I don't know. I'm not a state champion in any kind of wrestling, so it's all speculation. But like the rules change, the games that you're playing change, the objectives change. Like push-out rules are a thing in freestyle. And I remember like when I first started doing jiu-jitsu, I would go to a wrestling practice in Chicago, and I had done a lot of folk style wrestling. I had never done freestyle wrestling, but they wrestled with freestyle rules. And we would get to the edge of the mat, and in folk style wrestling, if you get to the edge of the mat and you're out of bounds, you just reset. And then I would get to the edge of the mat, and this guy would just push me out, and he'd be like, "That's a point." And I'm like, "Yeah, he got me again," and I didn't even know, you know.
Yeah. What do you think about the push out rule? Because you were at main character, I'm pretty sure, right? Not the 3, but maybe the 2. And it's not this past one on Valentine's Day, but the one before that. They had the push out rule for the 3v3, and what's his name? Who's the guy that runs it? I know his name.
Kamoy.
Yeah, Kamoy. He was saying no one wants to watch blue belts grapple, so he added the push out rule for action. And me personally, I thought it was super interesting. You know, because I think you hear that making and maintaining connections is a principle of jiu-jitsu. I also feel like making and maintaining a connection, not just to your opponent, but also the ground, is a huge fundamental that we don't see a lot because the sport is jiu-jitsu based and not MMA based. But MMA and street fighting, you never want to lose your connection to the ground unless you're like super in control of the match, right? Like even taking someone's back and like jumping on their back, you still want to be very careful if you're like out on the streets, right? So I think that making and maintaining a connection with the ground is a huge fundamental that we miss out on sometimes. And that push out rule kind of adds that back in there, whereas you can't just like jump on somebody because they can carry you out to the edge.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about it?
I don't know. I've never, like, apart from my experience getting pushed out a bunch in the gym and freestyle wrestling practice, I haven't like had a ton of experience with it. I think that I agree with what you said about how it has like, you know, it's a little bit more connected to like the pure essence of jiu-jitsu in a way, which I think is cool. I think that it's, you know, some tournaments have it. I don't think I'd want to see it at like ADCC or something. Yeah. I think that grappling in general doesn't have a good solution for boundaries. You know, like in wrestling, there's a circle. The second you're outside of the circle, you start over. Yeah. You know, like you drag your feet on the takedown. Like there are these beautiful takedowns. Like when I wrestled, I always loved the takedowns. Like you hit it and you're like dragging your feet to the edge of the mat. And it's like a football player. You know, like when a football player catches a touchdown in the corner of the end zone and he like drags his feet. I always thought those were like gorgeous.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And like you have those in wrestling too, where you're like dragging your feet on a single leg, trying to finish it. In jiu-jitsu, it's like the boundary is more like a gray area, you know, like in grappling industries or something like a local tournament, sometimes the boundary doesn't exist. Yeah. You know, it's like,
sometimes they cut you early.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes they cut you early. Sometimes like, you know, oh, the mat next to us is open. So we have 2 mats now. There's no boundaries, you know? So it's like grappling as a sport doesn't really have a good solution for boundary. Like, you know, they just did the freaking karate combat where now
I was going to bring
like,
that up. The pit submission series.
Which I thought was cool, but like I think someone hurt their knee on the pit.
Oh,
so
dang
like,
damn. I thought that was the answer.
I thought like cage is cool, but you know, cage is not perfect because then you're learning how to grapple on the cage, which I don't know if you've done that, but you trained MMA?
I've had, I've done MMA. I've done a bunch of grappling matches inside of a cage. I kind of like the cage because then you can't, I don't have to worry about you sprawling on a takedown and face planting me into the mat. At least I could run you to the cage. So I kind of like it because I know that bare minimum, you can't run from me. I do think it's kind of annoying to watch a grappling match when it's in a cage because if they're elevated and then you're looking through a fence, it's not that entertaining to watch. It's kind of boring. Yeah. At least the UFC, the way they do it is the cage is on the bottom, right, and then everyone's lifted up so they can see down, which is kind of what the pit submission series is like, right, where they're kind of lower and everyone's up so they can see down. I like that idea. Obviously, you can't do that everywhere where the audience is elevated, but I like grappling in a cage. I think it's kind of fun, but at the same time, it's not that spectator friendly.
Yeah, that makes sense. I did, so Dante had a match with PJ in a cage last summer, and I was in Toledo.
PJ Barge?
Yep, and I was in Toledo training with Dante like 2 weeks before the match. And so I had to do like wall wrestling with Dante, which was just terrible, you know, but like, so I've done a little bit of wall wrestling, and then I did a little in Chicago with a friend who was like training for an MMA fight. And so we would do some, but I don't have a ton of experience with it. But like in my experience, it feels like it's a different skill. You know, it changes the sport very much.
Yeah, I definitely think so, because I see my skill go way up if there's a wall involved.
Yeah.
It's almost interesting.
Like, I think part of that is probably because everyone else's skill goes way down.
Yeah.
And you know some stuff, so it's like it's super easy to put people down if they have no idea what to do.
Right. Yeah, I like when I go to open mats, one of my favorite things to do is to grapple against the wall. And I get it, because it's like, in competition, there is no wall. So if you're preparing for competition, it does make sense to reset away from the wall. But in general, I kind of think, in my perspective, there's walls in real life. So I think it's kind of annoying when you're rolling and you get near a wall and someone's like, "Oh, you want to reset?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, we'll reset." But it's a matted wall, dude. Like, we can bump against the wall a little bit. It's gonna be okay. But I come from a Marine background. You know, combatives, that sort of mindset. So our first mindset is like, they'd always scream at us, "Train like you fight," you know? So they wanted us in full gear. They try to make it as realistic as possible. So when you're in a nice padded room, it's like, to reset every time you get close to a padded wall is kind of silly. But again, if we're prepping for a competition, then it does make sense to be away from the wall, because there won't be one at ADCC.
I think the way to do it, like, but I don't like the grappling off the mat that they do in ADCC.
Yeah, that's not that.
Like, it's just so much chaos. Like, it's like you scored. Like, sometimes you'll see stuff like, "Oh, you score," but like, there was a video like one of the new wave guys took down Wagner, and Wagner landed in a chair.
That's Abraham. Shout out Abraham.
Yeah, right. Which is like.
He made a funny video of it. He's like, "How to defend the double leg." He's like, sit in a chair.
Yeah. Which is like so like ridiculous that he was in that situation. You know, both of those guys. You know.
Yeah, super.
Like Taza and Elijah Dorsey in the semis of trials. Like, I was watching. Elijah did a takedown. Something happened. They started spinning, and then I couldn't see him anymore. And then they reset, and Elijah had the back.
Yeah, man.
But it's like so many injuries can happen.
They were like literally on top of someone as that was going down. Like, some lady, they were like falling on some lady. And Elijah, you have to give it off to him, because that's the rules. So he played the rules perfectly. He took the back on top of someone. They were literally on top of crowd members, and he was still going for the back. And Taza was like, "What the fuck?" And so it's like, you can't blame Elijah for taking advantage of that, but it's like, man, we got to do something.
No,
like
the blame is on the rule set, I think. Like, it's an imperfect rule set. And I think that also, too, like in wrestling, like what you learn when you have an enclosed circle and the referee is strict about like you're outside the circle is you learn space management. Whereas like I feel like in jiu-jitsu, it's not something we care about.
Right.
You know, no one's like, "Oh, I have to score and keep the space."
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And now granted, it's so hard. It's way harder to score in ADCC than in folk style wrestling. You know, like how many like ADCC finals matches have more than one score, if any?
Right.
Very few.
Very few.
Whereas like in the college NCAA finals, there's always scores, you know?
Right.
Even like a low scoring match will have both guys scoring at least once. So like it's harder to score in jiu-jitsu, but the boundaries maybe make it easier to score. But like I feel like there's got to be a better, you know, solution than fighting on the carpet off the mat, you know?
Yeah. Man, I really was excited to bring up the pit submission with the elevated mats, but if someone got their knee hurt.
I think it was like a weird scramble where I think it was one of the new wave guys. I think it was Big Dan hurt his knee.
Oh, damn.
But I forget. I don't know if it was because of the pit or not. But like, I would pull guard if I was in the pit. You know?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to wrestle. Like if I on that, I don't want to like scramble and like pivot weird and something, you know, shifts.
Yeah,
or whatever.
for sure. Yeah. I also noticed like on the ADCC. So just because I know I'm going against the super heavyweights, I start super low with my hands protecting my knees, because I know that people are looking to lift someone up and run them into a table. I don't know if you know Alex Grandy, but he, man, someone was like upper body, and he was just like, boom, picked him up and just ran him in the table as soon as the match started. And it's like, I get why ADCC does it, because it is kind of entertaining if you think that anything can happen. But as a competitor, it's like, man, it's kind of fucked up, especially if you bang your knee on the concrete. Or one time at Combat Sports Coverage, they had the 3v3 tournament, and Davis Asari,
I was there. How was that?
he hit his head, dude. That was kind of depressing.
Yeah.
I watched his head smack the ground. I think the dude did a hard uchi or something, and they were kind of like mid cartwheel scramble. And man, Davis hit his head pretty hard on the concrete. And it's like, if we're doing jiu-jitsu, we should probably try to make it as safe as possible. If you want like high impact, hard fights, you got to protect the athletes, right? We can't be having people bang their heads on the concrete.
Well, I think too, like the thing is, like, it's weird. I feel like it puts like jiu-jitsu athletes in like a weird situation, because I feel like most people would say like, oh, you're not willing to like fight off the pavement, maybe you don't really want to win. Like, you shouldn't, as an athlete, you shouldn't be put in that situation.
Right.
It should be like there should be a enclosed. Every sport has an enclosed thing where you're fighting, an arena, right? Whereas like jiu-jitsu, the arena is like wherever they say it when the ref says stop.
Yes.
Which is like, that's interesting. I don't know.
Yeah. So, I mean, jiu-jitsu is a young sport, so we're still figuring it out.
That's true. Jiu-jitsu is a very young sport, so we're working on it. Like, wrestling has been around for like 130 years or something like that. I mean, ancient wrestling goes way back, but like in the wrestling's been around the Olympics since the first Olympics, like 130 years ago. So
right.
It's way more time. Jiu-jitsu started in the 90s.
Talking about wrestling and just like how much older, one of the main points that Sean Applegate had brought up when I had him on the podcast was just like how much more advanced the sports are, other sports are than jiu-jitsu, and that we should be trying to take like pieces from them and add it in. And one of the things that I notice is like in wrestling, like jiu-jitsu is one of the few places where the person that is actively doing the sport is also the coach, the head coach, which is kind of weird. It kind of creates like a compromise. Like, I have to worry about being the best version of myself for these competitions while also giving my full attention to the best of my ability to the people in my classes. Whereas if you go to like a wrestling academy or a high school, they'll have a head coach who is not competing at all. And then they'll have like the high schoolers, and then they'll have guys from college. They'll be in there too. Whereas, so they can like mix it up with the kids. But generally you see like the head coach is like someone who's not competing.
And Sean is, I think, an example of that, right? He doesn't compete anymore. At least
Sean,
not that I know of. Applegate.
Yeah, Sean. Yeah, he doesn't compete.
He's one of my favorite coaches in jiu-jitsu. He's like, so much of his stuff I've stolen over the years. Just like added to my game. Like, he taught I was at a camp in South Carolina, the Lycan camp, and he was teaching like the day after me.
Nader that runs the Lycan. He's one of my good friends.
Yeah. I was at the Lycan camp with Nader. Yeah. I'm actually going out there in April too.
Badass.
But Sean taught a seminar there, and it was like a lot of the stuff in that we were talking about today, like push-pull dilemmas and stuff like that. I learned that from Sean, in that seminar. Back control stuff after the main character, Sean showed me that. Sean is like one of the best. I think Sean is like one of the most underrated coaches in jiu-jitsu.
I agree with that.
His outside heel hook stuff is really good too. And all of those guys are super good.
Yeah.
But I agree that like jiu-jitsu it's strange because there aren't very many pure coaches. Danaher, Sean, the ecological guy, Souders. Those are a few, but there's not a lot of others that I can think of off the top of my head.
Where like in wrestling, it's almost like fantasy football with them. There's at least like 10 famous coaches that go between the different.
Yeah. I mean, every college has a like head coach, and they're not like competing. They're retired. And if a college coach were to like start competing, there would be like uproar. They'd be like, why aren't you paying full attention to our athletes? Right. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Like when I was in high school, my last year of wrestling, my coach competed once in the off season. And he did like the cadet world, or no, not cadet, cadet's kids, like the, whatever, like the old guy worlds is for wrestling. And it was like a whole thing. Like, he had to like take like 2 weeks off of coaching, and we had to go to a tournament with no coach. And it was like,
oh, dang.
you know, but it was, you know, we were like, whatever, it's like once a year, and we're also in high school and not that important. But like, you know, if that happened at like college level, that would be like ridiculous.
Yeah,
like
people would lose
D1,
it.
if that happened at Oklahoma State, it'd be ridiculous. So it's like, it's a different, the level of coaching in jiu-jitsu is still so new, you know, like also too, like a lot of jiu-jitsu learning is self-guided still, you know?
Yep.
Which is great. And there's so many resources available for learning, which is really awesome. But I think that part of me wonders, like, okay, is not having a coach a bad thing? Or is it just like a feature of jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, like having a dedicated coach that like structures everything. Yeah.
Like even like Jeff back home, my original coach, he stopped competing. He would compete every like couple of years, you know, he would do one, but he's mostly just a coach, you know, just training and coaching, and that's pretty much all he does. And he kind of had to like, you know, he got to a point in his career where he had to kind of like choose, you know, coach or athlete.
Yep.
Which is like, it's a hard decision. I'm not ready to make that decision, you know?
Yeah. No, neither am I. Because you essentially want to show your students that you still got it too, you know? So like, I'm teaching these kids, and, you know, it's like, they want to compete. They see me competing, and they're like, "Oh, are you doing it too?" I'm like, "If you want me to, dude, I'll jump in there." You know, it's like, it's hard because if you want me to coach you, it's going to be hard to coach you. Like now, man, it seems like they be having the white belts and the black belts going at the same time. If you go to a Naga, dude, white belts and black belts going at the same time, because they'll have the absolute, like the advanced absolutes going, and then they'll be banging out the white belts on mat 1. So it's like my guys are going over there, and it gets super complicated.
Yeah.
So then it's like, yeah, it's almost smart to just sit out and play the coach role. And then if you keep sitting out and playing the coach role, then
you're not like seasoned for
you're
like
not
an
seasoned.
Important competition.
Right.
Yeah, it's like a hard dilemma. But it doesn't happen in any other sport. Like imagine if like in baseball, like the manager was like, I'm gonna go play. I have a game tomorrow.
Yeah. Because when I'm training, so yeah, I have to get my rounds in too, and it's hard to, you know, I want to watch my guys. You know, I got to see where they're messing up. Yeah, they're asking me questions. I'm like, man, I kind of got to see where it is that what you're messing up. You know, because Danner, he sits Indian style and just watches the entire practice, you know, and there's so much benefit you can just get just from watching someone roll and watching their mistakes. But if you're competing, you have to be in the roles as well.
But like on the flip side, and this is something why I said that I think it might be a feature of jiu-jitsu, like for me as a grappler, I feel like when I'm grappling, that's when I have the best understanding of moves to like show to people. You know, like even like the seminar today, all the stuff I showed is like stuff I used this week, you know, because I do it every day.
Yep.
Versus like if I were to step into a pure coaching role, I would distance myself from the like active use of the techniques.
Right.
Which is like, you know, I feel like I'm like my coaching, my teaching is the most crisp when I'm training a lot. You know, so it's like I feel like you kind of got to do both, but it's hard to do both. You know, it's like a weird balance.
Yeah,
you know?
For sure. Yeah, my most fun times to teach are when I go to the dark side in the mornings. I'll go to the dark side and just again be a student, learn, and then a lot of times he shows me something like, man, I got to make sure I show my kids this. Yeah, and then I'll go show it at night.
Yeah, that's I think the way you do it.
Yeah. Yeah, we're talking about coaching and just all the differences between, you know, the rule sets and stuff. One thing I want to get into with you about a little bit is because as a full-time athlete, the way that you've been able to sustain that is being a content creator. And it seems like that's kind of like the way to go now, you know, unless you're like one of the top athletes in the sport, you essentially got to have like some other way of income, right? I think almost every athlete, even the guys at the top, have like other ways of making money outside of like being paid for specific matches. Like if you even take like Nicky Rod, you could argue is, you know, one of the top guys in the sport, right? Top 3. He's got Nicky Rod Eats. He's got like affiliate links for clothes. He's got, you know, obviously the seminars and the privates and stuff, but even goes out of his way to create like the Nicky Rod Eats thing, which has like, 100,000 followers, right? Again, that's just content creation. That's going outside of the typical jiu-jitsu stuff. And so you've had some success with that with the writing. We talked a little bit about it the last time that you were on the podcast, but since then it's gotten way better. So I had already known about it the last time that we did the podcast. I would read some of them, but now I told you this before. It's like not just me that sees it, but I see all my friends sharing it now. So I see you do like a jiu-jitsu vlog, not vlog, a jiu-jitsu blog of just like 10 things you should avoid in jiu-jitsu kind of thing. But that's really taken off. So I kind of want to get your perspective on, monetizing being a full-time athlete.
Yeah, so I think the first thing that I would tell anyone is I think a lot of people are very hesitant to put things out there. Like even like I heard somebody say the other day, they're like, oh, everybody thinks they're an influencer nowadays. And it's like, bro, I'm trying to make money, like, shut up. And I think that there's also a way to create content that isn't like a preachy, obnoxious influencer,
Right.
And like, so for me, like what I do is I do the Grappler's Diary. I do Instagram posts every day. I do a weekly newsletter that's free. I do a weekly newsletter that's paid. So you pay a subscription and you get a premium access to the newsletter. And then I do my instructionals. I have like ebooks. I have all these like digital products that I've created. And then the awareness that comes from the brand is how I'll book like seminar. Like the seminar today got booked from the Grappler Diary, not from Chris Wojcik being good at jiu-jitsu, because I think that, it's as an athlete in a sport where even the top athletes are not paid super well, it's naive to think that competition winnings are going to supply your full income. So you need to be creating something on the outside that is, going to help you sustain yourself so that you can keep training and keep competing and improve your skills and get better over the long run.
Right. And I think this is even important for not just athletes, but coaches as well. Because one of the things that I've seen, I've been to a lot of different gyms, dude. And again, I've been training for over a decade. One of the number one things that I see that will hurt gyms is that they're reliant on the memberships to support themselves or the business. And it's like, obviously making a bunch of money off memberships is great, but you don't want that to be the only source of income for the business. My coach, Victor Postis, man, he kills it on merch. He's one of the best guys I've ever seen on merch. I knew about his merch before I even knew who he was. I was like, man, those beanies are dope. He's always putting out new products, coming up with new ideas, limiteds. Like he doesn't have like a whole bunch of shirts. He literally creates just enough that he knows he'll sell them. And then that's it. That's like a limited time run. And then he comes up with a whole new idea. But he has multiple ways that he can provide income for the gym. So he's not worried about having 30 people signed up or paying at all times. Again, I guess what I'm trying to say is your advice just isn't for the full-time athlete or the aspiring competition athlete, but for just jiu-jitsu businesses in general. They should be trying to figure out ways to diversify their income. And you do it through creating content, but there's a really good argument out there these days that every business in general, but especially those online, need to be creating content.
Well, like I was going to say, it goes outside of just jiu-jitsu. Like like in general, I feel like if you want to learn how to not run a business, you look at most jiu-jitsu gyms. Because most jiu-jitsu gyms do it terrible. They don't create any content. They don't have any merch. They like barely pay memberships. Like they forget to charge people. They don't fucking they just, they're run by people who just love jiu-jitsu, not people who are interested in business. And so like the stuff that I've learned about business has come from like reading about business, not from like going to jiu-jitsu gyms or like, and in general, the guys who are killing it in business and jiu-jitsu are also learning about business, from people who like really know business. Like, you study Coca-Cola or like, other like billion-dollar companies that are like killing it and like, why are they doing so well? And then like from there, then you think smaller, like study like something big like that, because you can see the way the lessons play out on a macro level, and then you think about, how does this apply for yourself? You know, why is a limited release good? You know, what is like something like cold outreach, or like something like, you know, why do I want to create a free product? Like I have a free ebook. My free ebook has been downloaded well over 1,000 times. And every time someone subscribe or downloads the free ebook, they become an email subscriber. And then I can pitch them what I'm working on whenever I want, you know? And so that's like, and I learned about that not from jujitsu, but I learned about that from studying like online writers. And so like, you know, learning how to monetize your business without just, you know, like my business, I would say, is like jujitsu stuff, like seminars and stuff like that. But all of the stuff on the side, that comes from like content, you know, like, and like learning about business and like kind of testing things. And not everything is a home run, you know, some things.
Most things aren't home runs.
Yeah, you're right about that. Most things are not home runs, but some are, right? So then it's like, you got to keep and then you got to just keep testing. Some things are home runs, but not right away. Right. You know, so you got to just like stay persistent with it too. Yeah. Like the Grappler's Diary on Instagram, the first post had 23 likes or something like that, you know, and now it's like they average a few hundred a day on a bad one, you know? So it's like, it's just something that grows over time too. I think that's the other thing that is really important if you're like creating content. It's like, you have to be so freaking consistent. Like you have to be, if you like, you can't miss a week. You can't like, I mean, you can, but like, you really don't want to miss a week. You don't like a month, not a freaking chance. You know, you want to stay like, you need to stay on the path and just keep doing it. And then as you do it, you get better at doing it, and it gets easier to keep doing it. You know, and then you get positive momentum. Like now, like there were times in the early days of doing the Grappler's Diary that I was like, I'll do 100 and I'll stop. And then like I got to 100 and like people are like, oh, I love these posts. I like reading them. I share them with all my friends. I'm like, okay, well, I can't just stop, you know? So it's like, I think consistency is a big one as well. Like stay in, you know, first of all, get out of your head, just put it out there. If you have a desire to do it at all, just put it out there, and then just stay consistent. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Putting it out there is one of the hardest ones to do. Right. A lot of people want to overthink it. But putting it out there is how you get feedback.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I can't remember who I was listening to, but they were just talking about that. A lot of people come up with an idea and they think it's genius, and then they just want to push it out there as like as a finished product. And this guy, he was a creator, and he was just saying that you want to test your idea against reality. You want to put it into reality and get feedback so that you can adjust to the left or right. And so he was like, don't be scared of putting a rough draft out there. He's like, just test it. You put it out there, maybe like, so let's say you want to create a t-shirt. He's like, create a t-shirt design and show it to some of your friends and see what they think. You know, take everything with a grain of salt, take in a little bit, adjust it, put it out there again, do another limited series, see how people like it then. And just kind of, he was just saying how important it is to put it out there and then get feedback and then adjust. And he's like, that's how you funnel something into being a good idea, instead of just like people mastermind things inside their heads and they're like, oh, I'm going to get 1,000 shirts of this idea. And it's like, dude, you didn't even like hand it out and see what people thought about it.
Yeah. Well, in writing, we say practice in public. So it's like, you know, like because in writing, there's also like there's like two kinds of writing. There's like practicing in public, which is kind of more what I do, where it's like I post every day. They're not all home runs. Some are great, some are not so great. And it's okay because they're all just repetitions, you know? And then there's like cabin in the woods writing, where you go and you take a fucking giant manuscript and you go to a cabin in the middle of nowhere and you just work on your manuscript, and then you come back and you hope you have the next great American novel. And most of the time you don't. Right. And then you go and do it over again. Dang. Versus when you're writing, like practicing in public, it's like you're building every day. You're doing a little bit. You're slowly building the audience. You're launching a product. Product wasn't great, but we'll go to the next one. We just keep moving. Right. And that is, I think, a way to build a business, especially an online business, that you're going to have a higher chance of success, as opposed to trying to launch one thing and hoping it's a home run and then it's not, and then you get discouraged. Right. You know, like I feel like if I like, you know, do any sort of product or like release or whatever, and I like put all my like heart and soul into it and I want it to do super well, and then it doesn't, I'm like crushed and I don't want to go again. Right. But it's not like your product, like, or whatever course, whatever ebook, whatever, it like if it doesn't do well, it's not personal. It's either like a skill issue or it's a network issue. You know, so you either need to keep building your skills or you need to get it in front of the right people. That's pretty much the only two, like, that's where failure comes from pretty much all the time.
Interesting. So network or skills. Man, I like that. Yeah, we were talking about constantly putting it out there. So I feel that way about memes. I create a lot of memes just because it's like a good break. Like, because I train a lot and I've been able to get a lot more videos of me rolling, but I try to create different types of content. So I'm not just putting out there the same ones, because highlight videos are awesome, but also it's kind of like me kind of. So I hate, like, I do like a good highlight reel, but you know, it's kind of egotistical. So then I try to create memes because they make people laugh. And dude, I remember when posting once a week was hard. Coming up with a meme once a week was super difficult. And then, you know, then I committed to just doing once a day. Dude, now I can literally post 3 memes a day, and it doesn't really take me that. I can come up with a super hilarious meme in like 10 minutes. It takes me no time. And that's just because I've just committed to doing it. So now I'm like super fast at like coming up with something that's funny.
It's like a muscle.
Yeah. And so I've just really learned that, because if you would have told me a year ago that in order to really generate momentum on this thing, I would have to create 3 memes a day, I would just be like, dude, I can barely do 1. Like, what are you saying to me?
Yeah.
But as you're saying, the more reps that you get, you become faster, the muscle develops. So now if I can do a picture meme and 2 video memes, and if you're like, you got 30 minutes to come up with those, I could just bang them out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Like the longest part is posting it now.
Yeah. Like when I first started writing, I used to write 2 articles a week. I wrote 2 articles yesterday morning. You know,
Damn.
It's like, but that's not because I'm like I'm not super gifted. It's taken me a long time to get there, but it's just like, I've just done it for so long that it's like, it's not like, I'm not like waiting for inspiration. I'm not like thinking too much about it. I'm just like, this is what needs to be executed, and I'm just going to do the thing.
Right.
You know, and it's like any skill, like, you know, jujitsu, it's like when you first start jujitsu, like rolling one round is hard.
Yeah.
Like in your first round, you're like, oh my God. But then now it's like, well, how many rounds did we do today? Like 10?
Yeah, there's a lot. And we trained and we rolled for about 2 hours. Or, drilled for
like
almost 2 hours.
3 hours of jiu-jitsu today, maybe more. And that's like, you know, but that's like a skill that you build up over time, you know? And it's like content creation is like, it is very similar to doing jiu-jitsu or like writing or content creation or any sort of thing. It's like, it's very similar to doing jiu-jitsu on many different levels.
So dude, man, we've already been talking for an hour. It's rolled by super fast. That's how I know it was a good conversation. So I want to ask you maybe one more advice question, and then we'll wrap things up. So actually, you know what? I'm going to skip the advice ones. I'm going to ask you some fun ones.
Okay.
What do you think's the better position? Either you can do competition or just like realistically, back or mount?
So for competition, I was like back, but I've been really working on my mount control. So last like a year ago, I was like, I sucked at mount, and I was so mad because I would like tap all my training partners, but I couldn't hold them in mount. So now I've been working like really hard on my mount, and my mount has gotten really good, but I always shoot back.
Yeah. B Team and New Wave are like, I would say the 2
mount
best
every day.
Yeah, you guys are the best at mount.
It sucks, but you get good at mount.
Yeah. Because Hodger Gracie had that argument with Lex Friedman over which was better, the back or the mount. And Hodger said that mount is by far the best, and Lex Friedman was doing like devil's advocate, trying to argue for the back. But I think Kevon made a good point that Hodger Gracie trains in the gi, and that collar grip from mount in the gi is like crazy powerful.
Yeah, for no gi, I'd prefer back.
Yeah.
But I've been working on mount a lot.
Yeah. I think mount's the better position, because I just, from watching a lot of kids and white belts train, they always mess the back up. Naturally, like, again, I don't have to teach if I don't have to teach my kids anything. One of them will get on top of the other and hold their wrist down.
Mm-hmm.
Don't teach them anything. It takes a long time to develop a back attack where they don't lose it.
Yeah,
just
back
naturally.
is a skill.
It's a skill, yeah. So because of that, I like to lean towards mount. But being inside your back mount is fucking terrible. So dude, your body triangle is brutal. There's like a little bruise on my hip right now.
Oh no!
Holding me there.
Oh no!
And I remembered it from last time. I was like, this is the same. This is how you got me last time. And I felt like last time you were a little lighter, so I was able to really kind of like turn in and be heavy on your leg. But now you've put on a little more size. Your legs are a little thicker. I was like, dang it, it's not working this time. Your perspective, is jiu-jitsu a fight?
So I used to call it a fight, but I think that was just because everybody else called it a fight.
Mm-hmm.
I think I always say like, now I'll say like I have a match.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's a fight.
Yeah.
I don't think that it matters very much, but I do think there's something strange about being super insistent that it is a fight.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it can go both ways. Like, I've been in some wrestling matches that are like so much harder than jiu-jitsu matches. And I've been in some jiu-jitsu matches that have been like brutal, like bloody, and So I get it if you think it's a fight, but I always just say have a match.
Yeah, yeah. I like to say it's more, I don't say it's a fight. I definitely think that it definitely counts as a fight. When people ask me, I don't say I have a fight. I'm like, yeah, I got this match coming up. And if people, I'm like, some people will be like, oh, are you a fighter? And I go, I try. I don't like calling myself a fighter. 'Cause I think it's just weird.
So I did combat jiu-jitsu in December. That was a fight.
Yeah.
I slapped real fucking hard.
Yeah, combat jiu-jitsu, yeah, that's on another level. I feel like the reason I do like to think that it's a fight is because, like I said, if you go against someone really good in an ADCC match, it's going to feel like you're in a fight. Dude, every time I get into an ADCC match, dude, I get kneed in the head, I get kicked. Dude, my last trials run, my jaw was fucked up for a week, dude. He kicked me in the face like multiple times and I didn't even notice. I just came out of there with a fat lip and my jaw was all messed up. And I went back and watched the video and he's just trying to go to Ashi, dude. And he's just like kicking me in the face and I'm trying to like leg pummel and we don't even notice, you know? The other day my bad. We were training at open mat. Dude elbowed me right in the eye and split my stuff open. And there's this guy, he was in the sauna and I had a big old cut. I got the ears and I was just like, I was in there cutting weight for a super fight. And he was like, oh, you're a fighter? And I was like, I try to fight. I wouldn't say I'm a fighter. And he was like, oh, what do you do? And I told him I grapple. And he's like, oh, I would think that's the last thing you would do, to get hit in the face. And I was like, dude, I get hit in the face a lot. Believe it or not, I get hit in the face a lot.
I used to have a massage therapist sponsor when I was brown belt, and he used to say signing up for jiu-jitsu tournaments like signing up for a car accident. I was like, you're pretty much right.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, good answer. I think most people kind of agree with that. Like, jiu-jitsu can be a fight, but for the most part, it's a match. Last question. So I like to, I'm still playing with these questions, trying to figure out which ones get the best answers. I'm not trying to be weird with this question, but I like to ask what your spirit animal is, like maybe your jiu-jitsu fight animal. It seems like, I feel like animals are related closely to jiu-jitsu. A lot of academies use them as mascots. I've been a part of like spiritual groups before where they ask what your spirit animal is and everyone picks an animal. I think it's kind of cool. You kind of get a perspective into someone's personality, but I think it's interesting to see how people like tie maybe their jiu-jitsu style or their personality to an animal. Relate to you. What would you pick as your spirit animal, jiu-jitsu animal, whatever you want to call it?
So I've actually thought about this quite a bit. It's funny because my coach, Jeff, his gym is the Sloth.
The Sloth. I dig that, dude. I think it's hilarious.
I was always like, and so then one of his black belts, Ilya, opened a gym and they were the turtles.
Yeah.
And I was like, God damn, I need to have an animal. Yeah. And so I thought about this quite a bit. But so Jeff was a sloth because he's like slow and technical and methodical, and Ilya is very similar. So he picked another. I'm not like that. So maybe like a cat, because I'm like kind of like, I do like invert a lot and I'm like bendy and like you know, like kind of like the cat was like fighting with the ball. That's like me shooting for legs.
Yeah.
So I think that would be maybe something, but then like, I don't know. But my style is like more playful, you know? So I don't think I'm like, and I think probably a cat or something like that. Something like something, unfortunately, it would be something you would have as like a house pet. Is my spirit animal. Yeah. Like some people could say they're like a gorilla or something. Yeah. I'm a fucking house cat.
Yeah. That's funny. A house cat. That's
be.
Let's see here. Here recently, I really just been digging the snake for the past year or so. A lot of people tell me that I like slowly wrap them up and just squeeze the life out of them. And I'm like sticky, like I just like slowly wrap them up. And
that's way cooler than a house cat.
Yeah. Well, it's always funny and I'll pick a snake and then someone else is like, I'm an eagle. And you're just like,
that's good. The snake is like if you were like, I'm a gorilla, I'd be like, all right, dude. Yeah. You know, like that snake is like it's like a tough animal.
Right. Like, the most common is a lion.
You can't say you're a lion. Yeah. You know, that's not it.
I like the lion and the wolf a lot. I'm a Leo, so I kind of identify with the lion, and then the wolf is always like, you know, it's like a team. You work together as a team, and being part in the Marine Corps, like there's always that affinity with the wolves because we're like. The snake is also kind of spiritual too, you know, like chasing its tail. So I've been digging the snake, but again, the eagle thing always cracks me up because it's always like, it seems like the people who are usually doing really well, they're like eagles. And I'm like, man, I want to be an eagle one day. But I had this funny video that I found and I posted it where this around and dude, the snake like wraps his body around the hawk's neck and then just squeezes the life out of it and then just completely turns it. And man, I was like, oh yeah, it doesn't matter if you got wings, I'm still deadly.
Damn.
But I like the that the Seraphin coach uses it because I started following you a long time ago, so I'm very aware of your coach. I follow you guys. I like the slot because who else uses it? Ranger Up. They have the sloth as a mascot. One of their things is slow is smooth, smooth is fast with the sloth. Yep. And yeah, I mean, I've literally been told my whole life I'm not fast. So I've always been slow, methodical, and the sloth is like nice, you know? The sloth isn't a mean. You look away from me for 1 second, I'm gonna be on your back. So I'm always telling my kids that because they when the stuff you just showed him, he was trying to do it to me super fast. I know he don't know it, so I'm like, slow it down, buddy. We're gonna 1, 2, and it's like slow is smooth, smooth is fast. I learned that in the Marine Corps, dude. We had this little contest of changing the magazine and reloading, see who could do it the fastest from a jam. The guy who was the fastest, dude, he did not move fast. Dude, he was just slow. And I wouldn't say slow. He was just smooth. Yeah. Like, everything went exactly where it was supposed to be, like perfectly. And then ever since watching that dude do it, it was like, oh, if you can go slow and make it smooth, smooth really is fast. Because you try you're not pulling it all the way back like you should. So I really appreciate the sloth.
Yeah. A funny story about the sloth is when I was a blue belt, I did a tournament and, you know, Pedigo, they do this thing. So I beat a Pedigo guy and I think maybe 2 in the bracket. I was ahead of 2 Pedigo guys. And so the podium, they're going to do their thing. And I was like, we need to have a sloth pose. And so I was like, I did this on the podium and now that was like 2017, so it's been enough time where people don't know the story, they just know the pose. Yeah. And that's what I like, because the pose has lived on. It makes me happy.
Yeah, they don't even know where it came from.
But that's what I want. I don't want them to know that it's like a dumb story.
Yeah, I might do that one day. Well, Chris, dude, I appreciate having you on, dude. Pleasure talking with you.
Always, man. Thank you.
I definitely think my audience can get something out of it, especially if they're looking to make some content. And I just took your seminar today, and we did a pendejo guard. It was super fun. And we've rolled a couple times, and I always learn something from you. As soon as my heel's exposed, you're on it, like super fast. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you.
Thank you.